The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Friends, Alabamians, countrymen, lend me your ear. Kip Keefer on the TKR network with another edition of Everything You Need to Know. And my goodness, in this day and age, there are a ton of things. If you are not laser focused, if you don't follow the news, if you're not a online junkie reading everything you can possibly access and thinking about things, I'm here for you. Again, if this is your first time with us on Tony Kurre Radio, we do not tell you what to think. I am absolutely determined for you to form your thoughts and your opinions based on all of the information that you can gather. And if this show is one of the sources for that information, then I am fulfilling my purpose. Let's talk about some things that are and again, I apologize if people listen to the show regularly, and I thank you with all of my heart that you have become a regular listener. But with the possible hesitation of boring you with kind of the usual preface, I do want to say to folks that are just tuning in for the first time, I don't have a script. I don't talk about preconceived ideas. I've got 3 or 4 kind of bullet points in my head, things that during the week get my attention, and I think to myself, when you're doing this kind of thing, whether it's sports, which I do a lot of, or news and politics and headlines, you get in a mode where everything you hear, you wait for that sensor in your brain to kind of activate to say, that's something I need to talk about on Need to Know. And this week I've got a couple of really good ones. Let's start with Elon Musk. Elon Musk has become, from this left-wing progressive anti-Trump, Trump's going to end everything mentality. Elon Musk has become the most demonized figure in the country, not by the majority of the country, who the polls indicate are very supportive of his efforts to get rid of government waste, fraud, and abuse. And if you've listened to the show, I've added a 4th category to that: waste, abuse, fraud, and theft. Because so much of what's happening in our government, so much of what's happening with your tax dollars, if you get your paycheck and look down and it's a third gone, it goes to Washington, you should be steaming. You should be incensed. You should be pissed off that people are taking your money and using it for their own purposes in our government. And last week, we spent a lot of time on the Democrat situation, on the radical left wing, the Marxist wing of the government, encouraging people to fight back harder. We've got to fight back. And I went down the list asking, fight back about what? The waste of billions of dollars and the accumulation of a $36 trillion deficit, which is going to hamstring and hinder our children and grandchildren for generations to come. This drunken sailor, ridiculous spending, and so much of it in just a couple of months, less than a couple of months. You have found that Elon Musk and his experts that were on interviews last week with Brett Baer from Fox News, these weren't a bunch of guys. They've been characterized as like a bunch of guys in hoodies that are like computer geek nerds. You know, you thought they were right out of Animal House. These were executives. These were guys that started businesses that are technical geniuses. The group that is assembled to be doing this work and looking for things in our government that are waste, abuse, fraud, and theft, are doing a miraculous job. They've already come up with like $200 billion in just straight ridiculous, unjustifiable expenditure. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to be done. And yet, you hear Elon Musk now just demonized as this antichrist that is coming in and unelected, and he's the most powerful man in the country now. This is a guy that just 3 years ago, every leftist progressive would have said Elon Musk is my hero. This guy is pioneering. He is inventive. He is the best entrepreneur in the world. He is developing electric vehicles, which is going to save our planet. All of that ridiculous rhetoric. Now, because he's affiliated with Donald Trump, and believe me, that is his only sin. What he's doing with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is, for anybody that's got a functioning brain, something that every American should be standing up and giving us the loudest cheer possible. Because what he's accomplishing is uncovering all of this money that is just the merry-go-round of a slush fund. Because I told you last week, what you got to realize is that this thing is just a vicious circle. All this money is a circle just going round and round. And what it does, it keeps this party and this progressive Marxist wing and all the people around the world that have a vested interest, George Soros, all of these people around the world that are pouring millions of dollars into this movement to try and do anything to stop Donald Trump. I mean, what more can they do? They have tried to indict him on all kinds of absurd charges. People will say, well, he was convicted on 46 counts in New York. It was an absolute kangaroo court. There were no substantive charges. They were misdemeanors. They have 46 felonies. I love that. We've talked about it. 46 felonies, but they weren't felonies. They were bookkeeping crimes. Donald Trump didn't personally keep the books. Okay, that's a misdemeanor. You fine him. You say, well, you're still the man at the top. You're responsible. But what they did was tie them into federal law and made them campaign violations, which they don't have any jurisdiction to bring federal charges. So the whole thing was just an absolute sham. And his conviction by a New York City jury, hardly a shock. But all of the other charges, all of the ridiculous federal charges, all died on the vine. Trump triumphed over every single one of those. So when they say this is a convicted felon and he's in the White House, blah, 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 Americans know with overwhelming support, not only at the ballot box, but in recent polls assessing his first term in office, his second term actually, he is now an approval rate of over 50%, which is a remarkable accomplishment for someone who's been just characterized as the end of democracy, and all of the rhetoric they use, the reverse reality that they project. And that's what they do. They project what they are, the havoc they're wreaking on their political opponents. And if you do not absolutely, categorically, down the list, agree with this radical leftist Marxist movement, then you are an enemy of their cause. And because that Elon Musk has become a valued lieutenant and is volunteering his time at the cost now of tremendous damage to his business of Tesla, which are being boycotted and sabotaged and damaged. Just regular people, regular folks, most of them Democrats who thought they were doing something good for the environment. Now people are trashing their car. It's absolutely unbelievable. So you've got Elon Musk, certainly one of the most accomplished, brilliant entrepreneurs, by all accounts, the richest man on the face of the earth. And at the situation of his own business being completely thrown under the bus here, and badly damaged by this outrageous domestic terrorism of lighting cars on fire, leaving explosive devices that are designed to create fires at dealerships. I mean, there was a lady in Texas, uh, an elderly lady who some lunatic slammed into her Tesla with his four-wheel drive vehicle of some kind, and he was just lashing out at Elon Musk. I mean, it's so ridiculous. That's not punishing Elon Musk, a lady who's already bought a Tesla and is driving it around and is enjoying probably the nicest car she's ever had. When you attack that car, you're not attacking Elon Musk or Donald Trump. You're attacking almost certainly a Democrat who thought she was doing something that your party advocated as absolutely necessary to save the planet. It's lashing out at somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game. And even if you are lashing out at Elon Musk by attacking his cars on the lot or his cars in the dealership or his dealerships themselves, or even more seriously, people that are working at those dealerships that you're putting at risk, what are you accomplishing there? What are you punishing Elon Musk for? Are you punishing him for finding billions of dollars in waste and abuse? Is that cool with you, that we can give like Stacey Abrams $2 billion when they only have $100 in their bank account of their new great environmental watchdog organization? It's a slush fund, folks. They're taking your tax money and they're giving it to people in their party that will spread it around, that will use it for influence, and then ultimately, here's the kicker that I revealed last week: it will come back around into the pockets of the legislators who are running for office. This is where they generate so much of the money, because they'll tell you with a straight face that Donald Trump's only trying to get accommodations for billionaires with these tax cuts and other proposals. But the truth is, the Democrat Party now is nothing but funded and supported, and in this case, allowing operatives that they hired guns per se. The Democrat Party is made up of millionaires, billionaires, the top shelf technical representatives, corporate representatives. The Democrat Party is the party of the very, very wealthy now. The game has changed. The Republican Party is now the working man's party. The Republican Party is now the populist movement of American people of all races, creeds, colors, and religious backgrounds. The Republicans have taken the mantle that the Democrats used to basically rule the roost for most of the previous century. So, with all that being said, they're projecting their sins on everybody else, because President Trump, who was swept into office with resounding results in the election, won every swing state, won the popular vote by over 5 million votes. 78 million Americans voted for Donald Trump, despite all of the obstructions, all of the nonsense, all of the ridiculous things this guy went through, 2 assassination attempts, including one that actually successfully managed to wound him. He came through all of that, stood tall for the American people, ran on an agenda, did countless rallies, had all kinds of press conferences talking about his plans. Nothing he's doing is some kind of big surprise. This is what people voted for. This is why Americans are still supporting him in the polls. This is the movement right now in this country. And these leftist, progressive, Marxist wing of the Democrat Party is absolutely freaking out. They are trying to do everything possible to put up some barriers in the way and keep this from continuing. And they're just playing a stall game right now. We've got a situation. I did a show here in Birmingham back in 2017 when I talked about one of the great concerns I had for this country going forward is how partisan the federal government has become. And every time there's a situation where you get a president in the White House and a Senate of the same party, you have this flurry of activity of trying to fill all of these judges' positions, district federal judges, the lowest level of the federal court system, with people that are like-minded ideologically and philosophically, and most important, politically. And when that happens, it completely compromises the system so brilliantly conceived by our founding fathers. Because the three branches of government, the equal checks and balances in the government, is turned upside down when the judicial branch is corrupt and focuses on anything other than the constitutional principles of law. And the founders knew that was a potential flaw. The founders designed on purpose a series of appellate opportunities that can take away a judge's opinion that is not based on law and is based on politics and ideology. And of course, then they had the only court that the founders created was the Supreme Court. They didn't even go that route. They just left the door open for Congress to decide when and under what circumstance it was necessary to add more federal judges down the line. And so everything you're seeing now, the founders in the Constitution created the Supreme Court, but all the appeals courts and the district courts that are in place now, a lot of them staffed by individuals appointed politically, not for their jurisprudence ability. And that is a huge, huge chink in the armor for this system of America, this audacious experiment to work. And when you have these judges appointed in these administrations that are only bent on trying to stack courts with as many like-minded people as possible, and both sides are guilty. Trump set a record in his first term in 2016 of putting conservative judges on the bench, and then the pseudo Biden administration, and I cleared my throat to illustrate the absurdity. There was no Biden administration. There was a puppet administration, a marionette, a front man. Joe Biden made no decisions. Joe Biden had no cognizant ability to be president. The Obama All-Star team ran the Joe Biden administration term. His brilliant vice president, Kamala Harris, had no input, no say. The bottom line is Biden was surrounded by all Obama operatives and Obama representatives in the main places in his cabinet. Winkin, Blinken, and Nod. Tony Blinken, an absolute disaster as Secretary of State, and so many other Obama graduates from his two administrations made all the decisions, called all the shots in that administration, including Obama and his advisor, Valerie Jarrett, and Michelle herself. That was who was running the shadow government. It was a presidency for 4 years that really didn't exist. And scary, even more scary, people like George Soros and so many of these corporate heads and tech giants who now have jumped ship because they see the trend in this country where people had enough. This pseudo fake government that we endured for 4 years, with wide open borders that let millions of people stroll into the country, many of them right out of prisons in godforsaken countries, people that were in gangs, organized criminal organizations, the biggest drug cartels in the world, which are literally killing American citizens in droves. By now, there's over 300,000 fentanyl deaths in recent years. The whole thing adds up to a situation where this country was just sacrificed because that was going to promote the power and control that this party just absolutely is determined to maintain. And in that scenario, the only thing they have, the only tool they have right now, they don't have the House, they don't have the Senate, they do not have the presidency, to say the least. So the only tool they have right now, with the executive and the legislative completely dominated by the Republican Party, the only thing they have left is the judicial system and the court system. And the most heinous thing in that story is the situation when you get a crazy lawsuit. If you're an attorney general from Illinois or New Hampshire or Vermont, one of the blue states, and you want to interrupt the policy of Donald Trump, if you are a government employee who's being laid off because your department is being eliminated because it's just a wasteful fraud, like the USAID, which was the ultimate slush fund money running operation for the Democrat Party, the entire administrative state, the fourth branch of government, the bureaucracy of government, is 100% Democrat. 92% of people in Washington, D.C. voted for Kamala Harris. There is not a Republican in town. And if there are people that call themselves Republicans, most of them are benefiting from the same favoritism, the same payola. Their money, their pockets are stuffed with checks. They're getting support from all of these roundabout. A lot of this is your federal tax money, but it ends up in the pockets of these legislators, as do all kinds of massive contributions from every entity in the country trying to get favorable treatment on getting bills that will benefit their particular industry or endeavor. So the bottom line is, this is just a complete sham. The American people have been played as fools, and stupidly, not enough of us have gotten involved. We've just stuck our head in the sand and say whatever. When a senator goes to Washington and has no money whatsoever, some of them coming out of bankruptcy or failed businesses. So what the hell? What do I do next? I guess I'll run for office. If that kind of guy comes in with nominal to limited wealth and emerges 4, 5, 6 terms later as a multimillionaire, why doesn't somebody ask the question, how is that happening? Well, I've told you 100 times on this show how it happens, because they are getting support and money from everywhere. And what Elon Musk and his group is trying to do right now is track down the most blatant abuses in all these departments, agencies, bureaus, and non-government NGOs, non-government organizations. Congress appropriates the money, but then Congress pays no attention to where it goes. It gets filtered out to all of these non-elected, lifetime Democrat bureaucrats, and they use it to feather their nest, to support their causes, to invest heavily in elections. And that's where it goes. And it works its way back to Washington in the form of massive campaign contributions once everybody has wet their beak and taken their share. It's a hideous game. It needs to stop. This country cannot survive if this is not checked at the door for good and completely ceased, because it's not sustainable. You can't collect trillions of dollars in tax proceeds and just fruitlessly fritter it away on programs that are never realized and promises that are never kept. It's just a big joke, and all of us are the butt of that joke. the citizens of this great country. And speaking of elections, a great example of what I'm talking about is happening right now in Florida. In two districts, two House districts, there's an election on Tuesday of this week where the people that have left those seats, Matt Gaetz, who had been appointed to be the new head of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General. Gaetz, of course, running into some problems with some of his ethics violations, withdrew from that, and also resigned from the House as a result, because they were going to really kind of throw him all of these allegations, and it was going to be really bad for him. So to avoid that scrutiny, he stepped aside. If he wasn't in the House anymore, they weren't going to prosecute that case. So that district has been unfilled. And Michael Waltz, who another Republican stronghold congressman from a very red district where Donald Trump carried his district by 32 points in the recent election. Both of those seats are now going to be filled with an election tomorrow in Florida. Florida has gone overwhelmingly red. However, in both of these districts, these races are not slam dunks, because the Democrat candidate in both these races, who are the huge underdogs, have gotten so many millions of dollars in funding, not from Florida residents, not from Florida business, not from Florida interests. The money has come from George Soros, from Hollywood, from huge Marxist, far left-wing Democrat icons like Fitzker, the governor of Illinois. They have pumped so much money into these districts for the Democrat candidates who would not stand a chance if they did not have this huge financial edge. And these races are actually ones we got to keep an eye on tomorrow, because if those two Democrats somehow, some way, buy their way in through all these contributions and get in the House, it can seriously damage the Republicans' ability to get some things done here, because the Republicans still getting organized, trying to get Trump's bills together for the budget, the tax cuts, which are going to benefit every single one of us, because the price of your taxes is going to be greatly reduced. And more importantly, corporate taxes will drop to an all-time low level, which will bring manufacturing back to America, will bring jobs back to America, and most importantly, will dramatically lower prices in America. American-made goods by American workers. It is the key to success, and you do not want to interrupt the situation right now where President Trump is on a mission. These elections in Florida, critical. If you've got any friends in those districts, call and urge them to get to the polls, because these Republicans need to prevail to increase that advantage in the House. It's critically important. There's another race in Wisconsin. This one kind of underlies the whole problem, and we'll start to wind this down. In Wisconsin, you have right now on the Supreme Court of that state a 4-3 conservative advantage going on. There's an election coming up with a very radical left-wing candidate on one end, and the incumbent judge on the other, a conservative, against a radical left wing. There has been so much money put into a judge's race. Now, first of all, and in Alabama, we have the same situation. We elect the judges for the Supreme Court of the state. That is just blatantly wrong, because these should not be elected positions. These should be positions that a nonpartisan mixed group of individuals that are law scholars, that are some of the most brilliant legal minds in each state or whatever the jurisdiction would be, selecting judges based on their judicial record, their personal conduct, all of those things. If a judge runs for election and is taking millions of dollars in campaign contributions, doesn't that make that judge beholden to that individual? I mean, think about that. This is one of the most disturbing things in our system right now. Judges' elections. It's just wrong. It's not the way it was conceived. It's not the way it should be done. And in Wisconsin, the conservative judge, Elon Musk, once again, who is on board in this movement because he is now an American citizen. You had some idiots over the weekend at the World Call for Action protests all over the world, mostly at Tesla dealerships, calling Elon Musk one idiot guy. You listen to these people and you realize that these are probably the stupidest people in the whole world. This one guy goes, "Well, he's an illegal alien and he's running the government." Elon Musk is not an illegal alien. Elon Musk and his family entered the United States from Canada legally. They were processed. They went through all the steps of citizenship, and Elon Musk is a naturalized American citizen. He was born overseas in South Africa, so he can't run for president. But Elon Musk, don't if you hear some idiot tell you he's an illegal immigrant, that's absolute nonsense. It's just not the facts. They also, one guy's going, "Well, it's clear he's a Nazi. You saw there at the inauguration, he was doing the Nazi salute." He raised his arms in the air when Trump mentioned, "And we will go to Mars," because as a SpaceX guy, as a pioneer in space, he just built the rocket that went and rescued the astronauts that have been stranded by the previous pseudo administration for 9 months in space. Elon Musk is an absolute brilliant cog in the machine. And other countries are just wishing. Piers Morgan, one of the most prominent British commentators, just this morning said, "Gosh, I wish he would blow off all of this unrest and all this hatred in America and come to our country and assess all the waste and fraud and abuse in our government." Other countries are looking and saying, Donald Trump has the smartest, most entrepreneurial genius in the world, helping him to execute his agenda. So the Elon Musk went to Wisconsin because the reason this race for a Wisconsin judge's position is critical is that the Republicans now have more representatives in the House of Representatives in Washington from Wisconsin than there are Democrats. And this is unprecedented for a state that has been traditionally blue. Of course, Trump also carried Wisconsin. But if this leftist, progressive, Marxist judge gets this seat and flips the court in Wisconsin to 4-3, that's going to lead to massive redistricting. Gerrymandering is the term for it, where they draw the lines so all of the population areas that are predominantly Democrat voters would have the upper hand. Now, that doesn't ensure in this day and age that an election's still going to go the way they want it to go, because so many people are starting to wake up and go, "Why am I voting for Democrats? They don't do anything for me. They don't improve my life." But people just have in their mind that Republicans are the party of the rich and the billionaires and that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. It's so dumb. The things that they cite as reasons for their actions just don't make any sense. It is not intellectually correct. It is not logically correct. And from a common sense standpoint, it is absolutely ridiculous that people are parading around screaming at the top of their lungs, incensed that we're deporting gang members and cartel people and convicted killers from other countries that have been allowed to come into this country, for there to be outrage from the left. The bottom line is the left has built this great bureaucratic state in Washington. They own it, they run it, they operate it, and they always will. And they're absolutely apoplectic that Trump is tearing at the fabric of what they've painstakingly built. that funds the whole engine. You cut off their money, it's like cutting off their oxygen supply. They will wither and die without that big infusion of your money keeping their party and their complete mania alive. Ask yourself two questions. Are there uh, is there any place in women's sports for men to participate? That's one of the things they're fighting tooth and nail for. 90% of Americans say absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Should naked men be allowed to parade around, still featuring their junk, by the way, in women's locker rooms? If you think that's a viable position to fight for, the hill that you want to die on as a Democrat, then by all means, throw your support in the Democratic pile, because it's this kind of nonsense and this kind of radicalism that you're supporting, even if you're the most centrist Democrat in the world, because this just in, folks, your kind of Democrat has no place in this party. They are left. They are Marxist. They hate America. They want to reform America. They want to take away your individual liberties, and they want to leave you just withering in the dust because they don't give a damn about you unless it's your vote. Then they care about you immensely. And so many of you voted this time with your conscience and your common sense and did the right thing. And we've all got to stand up and hope that this Supreme Court puts a stop to this ridiculous situation where the lowest life, the most unqualified district judge is the de facto leader of this country. These judges make these decisions not based on rule of law. There's constitutional, absolutely unshakable constitutional justification for everything this administration's doing. And these judges are throwing a monkey in the wrench to keep things from moving forward because they're just trying to stall, and hopefully get to the midterms next year where they fantasize that this resistance movement, which is pissing off most Americans like me who actually think about these things and have common sense, they think that's going to work and that the American people are going to restore majorities in either the House or the Senate or both and completely, pun intended, trump this president. I'm Kip Kiefer. That's what you needed to know this week. Sorry for the rant and rave kind of vibe, but this is important stuff. And if that's the best way to convey the message, so be it. I wish you all well. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you next Monday here on TKR.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.